Okay, Google. Good morning.
Good morning. The time is 7:38 a.m. Currently in Raytown it's 62 degrees with snow. Today there will be scattered thunderstorms with a forecasted high of 71 and a low of 39. Here's a joke to start your morning. What do you call a shoe made out of a banana? A slipper. No tasks for today. Have a good one. Here's the latest news. From AccuWeather Daily at 6 a.m. today.
From AccuWeather.com, this is AccuWeather Daily, a brief host-read article. It's weather news in a nutshell. This episode is brought to you by Factor. Take the stress and prep work out of eating healthy with Factor's fully prepared meals that are designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. Factor uses lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. So these meals will not only taste delicious, you'll feel great about eating them. And the variety is incredible. With 100 rotating weekly meals, it will be like you're traveling around the world from the comfort of your kitchen. Just this week, I dove into Factor's queso poblano chicken, the pesto shrimp cavatappi, and the pepper fondue shredded chicken, and I loved every delicious bite. I can't wait for what's next. No refined sugars or seed oil, no artificial sweeteners, and each meal is ready in about 2 minutes. Try Factor and see for yourself. Head to factormeals.com/AccuWeather50off and use code AccuWeather50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. A storm developing high in the atmosphere will take shape over the southwestern U.S. and send strong winds to the surface, bringing a couple of days of Santa Ana conditions to Southern California. AccuWeather's Dan Houck said that typically Southern California gets Santa Ana winds when high pressure builds inland into the Great Basin. Late this week into the weekend, the setup will be different with less high pressure involved and more influence from a storm in the jet stream forming nearby overhead. The storm will generate gusty northeast winds that howl over mountain passes, through canyons, and into coastal areas of Southern California from Friday night into Saturday night. Winds will ramp up on Friday afternoon and then taper down on Sunday. Houck said that winds could become strong enough to break tree limbs and topple shallow-rooted trees. If limbs do contact power lines, sporadic outages are possible. Since the region has received plenty of rain this winter, including 3 to 4 inches in Los Angeles just past mid-February, the brush remains green and moist despite recent heat. Houck said that anytime you get strong winds in Southern California, such as during a Santa Ana, there is some risk of wildfire ignition. In this case, though, the risk is low. Even so, people should use caution with open flames and power equipment, as sparks could quickly start a fast-spreading fire. Travel may be difficult for high-profile vehicles caught in crosswinds on open highways. The high-flying storm could draw in enough moisture to trigger a stray shower over SoCal deserts, but shower chances are higher farther east in Arizona and New Mexico. Now, the setup will bring chilly air to the deserts and mountains of the interior Southwest, but that air will warm significantly as it flows downhill toward lower elevations along the Southern California coast. Temperatures will climb well into the 70s by Friday and reach the 80s on Saturday in downtown LA. Well, a magnitude 4.9 earthquake rattled Louisiana on Thursday morning, striking 36 miles south-southeast of Shreveport. That's according to the U.S. Geological Society. Preliminarily, it is the biggest earthquake recorded in state history. It happened around 5:30 a.m. Central Time, and it occurred just 3.1 miles below the surface. There have been no immediate reports of significant damage in the area. Earthquakes of this magnitude are rare in Louisiana. Since early December, northwestern Louisiana has recorded 8 earthquakes, ranging from magnitude 2.6 to 3.1. This is the strongest quake on land in 2 decades. 2 strong earthquakes were recorded offshore in the Gulf, with a magnitude 5.3 on Grand Isle in 2006 and a 4.9 back in 1978. Additionally, On May 17th of 2012, a magnitude 4.8 quake struck Timpson, Texas. The epicenter of the 2012 tremor was about 57 miles west of the one that was recorded on Thursday morning. Blood Rain may visit Europe this week, and while that may sound like the latest heavy metal band touring the continent, it is anything but. Instead, AccuWeather meteorologists say that Saharan dust from Africa is moving northward across Spain and Portugal late this week, and it could cause a phenomenon known as blood rain in Spain, France, and the UK. Also known as mud rain or dirty rain, this event occurs when dust mixes with rain, causing runoff and making the sky appear eerie orange, brown, or red. The rain can also leave behind a layer of dust on homes and cars after it evaporates. Air quality may also be reduced during and following the dusty rain. Rain that leaves a dusty film behind can happen anywhere in the world, including the U.S. Places closer to the source of the red dust, such as northern Africa and southern Europe, are more likely to see true blood rain. This phenomenon is different than that which occurs in Hormuz Island, Iran, where rain can hit crimson soil rich in iron oxide. That's all for now. You can find more regional forecasts and science-based articles at AccuWeather.com. And for your local forecast at your fingertips, download the AccuWeather app. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. I'll be back tomorrow with more from AccuWeather.
From NPR News Now at 7:10 a.m. today.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Israeli officials say Israel is conducting a, quote, broad-scale wave of strikes against Iran's military infrastructure. Multiple airstrikes rocked the capital, Tehran, today. Israel claims it has done major damage to Iran's air defense systems. As NPR's Carrie Kahn reports, Israel has lifted some restrictions on public gatherings inside Israel as the number of incoming missiles and drones fired from Iran decrease.
Israel's Army Chief of Staff says 80% of Iran's air defenses have been destroyed and at least 60% of its ability to launch missiles have also been crippled. But while the number of incoming missiles and drones from Iran have decreased, military officials say the threat remains. It is suggested more large targets in Iran will be hit without providing details. With the decrease in incoming projectiles from Iran, Israel has begun easing public gathering restrictions. Schools and many businesses, however, remain closed, as well as major religious sites in Jerusalem, including the Al-Aqsa Mosque, where normally tens of thousands of worshippers would attend prayers on this third Friday of Ramadan. Carrie Kahn, NPR News.
White House officials will meet with some of the biggest U.S. defense contractors today. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports this meeting comes amid concerns about the stock of weapons available to the U.S. military.
White House officials are expected to press its contractors to accelerate weapons production as the U.S. expands its war in Iran. The White House and Pentagon say the U.S. military has already hit more than 2,000 targets. President Trump says the war may last 4 to 5 weeks. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says strikes will accelerate in the coming days. U.S. officials who were not authorized to speak publicly told NPR that they're concerned about a lack of missile interceptors and may have to draw from other stockpiles. The Pentagon, though, has pushed back, saying they have sufficient precision munitions, and that once they gain more control of Iranian airspace, they'll be able to rely on less sophisticated weapons. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
President Trump has fired Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. He's nominating her replacement, Oklahoma Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin. The change in DHS leadership comes as the agency remains shut down. NPR Sam Greenglass says that Democratic lawmakers want changes in how immigration agents operate before they vote for a funding measure.
Mullin would be taking over a department that could still be shut down, so it is hard to imagine that he won't play a role in publicly pushing for Democrats to fund it. Mullin is respected for having the ear of the president and also his old colleagues in the House, and that's one reason why he was one of the senators involved in talks to end the record-long shutdown last fall.
You're listening to NPR. The government releases its monthly jobs reports later this hour. Some economists predict these will show modest hiring in February, with about 50,000 jobs created. The Pentagon says it's labeling the AI company Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security. The Defense Department is banning any entity related to the Pentagon from doing business with Anthropic, which makes the chatbot Claude. Anthropic has been arguing with the Pentagon over how its chatbot can be used. The company doesn't want its chatbot to be used to surveil Americans, and it doesn't want the U.S. military to use it for deadly autonomous weapons. Anthropic says it will sue the Pentagon. One of the last farewells will be held today in Chicago for the late civil rights leader and former presidential candidate, Reverend Jesse Jackson. As NPR's Cheryl Corley reports, 3 former presidents will attend the service.
Dignitaries, entertainers, and family will offer a mix of praise and song for the civil rights leader who died last month from a rare brain disease. There's been several days of events celebrating Jackson's life and legacy in Chicago and in his home state of South Carolina. Jackson became a national force during his 2 runs for the White House in the 1980s. Today, former Presidents Biden and Clinton will pay tribute to the man who's often credited with laying the groundwork for the country's first black president, Barack Obama, who will also be present. On Saturday, a musical tribute featuring Stevie Wonder and other artists will be held during the last of the Jackson celebrations at his Rainbow Push Coalition. Cheryl Corley, NPR News, Chicago.
You're listening to NPR News.
From Fox News at 5:06 a.m. today.
There's lots more smoke billowing across Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, with more strikes on day 7 of the war.
This operation is really ahead of schedule. The Americans and the Israelis are continuing to pound the Iranian regime. The Iranians are still firing missiles toward Israel overnight. Some of those missiles overshot their targets and landed in the sea.
Fox's Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv says there is some damage outside the city from the debris from these downed missiles.
And some of them have cluster munitions on the warheads that are making it very dangerous for the population below here in Israel.
And as the U.S. keeps bombarding Iran, President Trump says,
I'm once again calling on all members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military, and the police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed.
And as Iran considers who will lead the country after Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei was killed, Fox's Peter Doocy reports from the White House.
After being able to go into Venezuela, take the leader out, and then have a hand in what happens next, the president seems very encouraged to try to replicate that in places like Iran. That is why he is telling Axios they are wasting their time. Khamenei's son is a lightweight. I have to be involved in the appointment.
And in this conflict, oil prices keep rising. $85 a barrel now. A week ago, it was $65. And at the gas pump, another 7-cent increase. So AAA's national average for regular at $3.32 a gallon is up 33 cents in 4 days. There is a change atop Homeland Security. Secretary Kristi Noem fired after controversial immigration enforcement, and the Senate's Democratic leader Chuck Schumer posted on X, good riddance, but more needs to be done as Democrats keep blocking new DHS funding, demanding ICE be reformed and reined in. Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen is President Trump's pick to replace Noem.
There's a lot of work we can do to get Department of Homeland Security working, working for the American people.
Mullen would need to be confirmed by the Senate. In Oklahoma, Senator Mullen's home state, there's tornado damage, and a mother and daughter were reportedly killed when the vehicle they were in got hit. America's listening to Fox News.
Every business is asking the same question. How do we make AI work for us? No more waiting. With NetSuite by Oracle, you can put AI to work today. NetSuite is the #1 AI cloud ERP trusted by over 43,000 businesses. It's the unified suite that brings your finances, inventory, commerce, HR, and CRM into a single source of truth. The connected data is what makes your AI smarter, helping you make fast decisions. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, get our free business guide, Demystifying AI, at netsuite.com/Fox.
Now, while President Trump replaces Kristi Noem atop Homeland Security, Democrats demand immigration enforcement reform, and there is a new Fox News poll before the firing.
Nearly 6 in 10 voters disapprove of ICE's performance. This is the highest disapproval rating recorded, up 7 points since last fall, and 17 points since the question was first asked in 2018. On top of that, half of respondents say they want Congress to reduce funding for ICE. On the plus side for the administration, 42% of voters believe President Trump's immigration policies are making the U.S. more safe. That's up from 39% last summer. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Next hour, we will get the monthly jobs report expected to show a slowdown in hiring from January.
Investors will be looking at today's jobs report for clues on when the Fed might start cutting rates again, with many economists leading toward a possible July move after Chair Jerome Powell's term ends in May and nominee Kevin Warsh is expected to take over. But with the Iran conflict driving a fresh jump in oil prices and reigniting inflation concerns, a strong payrolls reading could push those rate cut bets even further out. Hillary Barsky, Fox News.
Ahead of that report, stock futures are down the day after a big drop for the Dow, 784 points. In the NBA, LeBron James makes history again.
James, turn around. He's got it. Another record in the legendary career of LeBron James. Most field goals in NBA history. Passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Recall on Amazon Prime Video, James finished with 16 points but left the game with an elbow injury, and his Los Angeles Lakers lost to Denver 120-113. At the World Baseball Classic, Japan's star Shohei Ohtani is shining. He has a home run and 5 RBIs. Japan leads Chinese Taipei 13-0 in the 5th inning. There's 7 other games today, including Team USA's opener. They played Brazil. I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox.
This is Ainsley Earhart. Thank you for joining me for the 52-episode podcast series, The Life of Jesus.
A listening experience that will provide hope, comfort, and understanding of the greatest story ever told. Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
There are no new items from NPR Technology. From ESPN Radio at 11:55 a.m. yesterday.
ESPN Radio Sports Beat with Evan Cohen.
On Wednesday, a huge NFL trade came down, as first reported by Adam Schefter, that really told you a ton about the two teams that made it. The LA Rams, bleep them picks yet again, going all in, bringing in cornerback Trent McDuffie, an all-pro player, to join their team, giving up a first-round pick. Yet another first-round pick. They do have one left. And they're telling you, we believe we can beat the defending champion Seattle Seahawks, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it quickly in the offseason with a guy like McDuffie. Kudos to them. But also kudos to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Patrick Mahomes. No matter how banged up he may be and how many games he may play, the team should absolutely revolve around him. And Patrick Mahomes should not be surrounded by high-priced players. He should be surrounded by as many players on smart contracts that can help him win. By littering their team with draft picks, it gives them flexibility and depth. That's how you build around a superstar quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. Tonight, the LA Lakers and Denver Nuggets play in a primetime NBA showdown in the Western Conference, and all eyes seem to be on Luka. You know, the player the Dallas Mavericks got to the finals with, but couldn't win it all, and thus they traded him because of who knows why. In Dallas, only they can tell us. But the Los Angeles Lakers have acquired this superstar, who's going to be a Hall of Famer at some point. But he has become one of the most difficult players to build around. Why? Not because he's not great, probably top 5 in the league. Not because you wouldn't want him, face of the franchise. But unlike other superstars, you have to build around his deficiencies as much as you build around his strengths. With LeBron, you build around to complement. You don't build around to make up for. And I think the struggle the Los Angeles Lakers are going to have moving forward is they are going to have to build around his deficiencies as much as his strengths, and that is not an easy thing to do. He's not a defensive player, thus they have to find defenders who can also score. For the ESPN Radio Sports Beat, I'm Evan Cohen.
From ABC News Update at 7:05 a.m. today.
Alexa listeners, say, Alexa, enable Wall Street now for the latest business news and market updates throughout the day.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. The U.S. and Israel continue to bombard Iran in the 7th day of military operations. ABC's Ian Panels in Tel Aviv.
Residents in Tehran reporting that last night was the heaviest night of bombing so far, as the U.S. and Israel step up their campaign, warning that more is to come. But Iran's still showing it's capable of retaliating.
And those retaliations have used drones. Now a Ukrainian government source tells ABC Ukrainian interceptor drone specialists will deploy to the Middle East in the coming days to help U.S. bases defend themselves. As for Iran's future, ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz has more on a potential new leader.
Ayatollah Khamenei's 56-year-old son is considered a top contender in Iran to take his father's place. But that would be a continuation of a hardline government, and the White House has already said he is not acceptable. President Trump telling our John Carl, we don't want them to put anybody in there unless it is approved by us.
The war having an impact on gas prices, up an average of 11% over the last week. The U.S. is allowing the sale of Russian oil to India for 30 days in order to boost the global oil supply. President Trump's made the first cabinet shakeup of his second term, firing Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. ABC's Mary Bruce has more on why.
A source says the president fired Noem because of her many unfortunate leadership failures. During 2 days of blistering hearings, the secretary pressed on those alleged failures, including her response to the immigration crackdown in Minneapolis and the killings of 2 American citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, by federal agents. Noem quick to characterize the victims as domestic terrorists.
President's nominating Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma to be the new secretary. Economists expecting a labor market slowdown when the February jobs report comes out this hour. You're listening to ABC News. Former Presidents Clinton, Obama, and Biden are all expected at a celebration of life in Chicago today for the late civil rights leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And in battle, Congressman's given up his bid for re-election after ABC's Jim Ryan says it's a scandal that's plagued Tony Gonzalez for several months.
Firefighters responding to a home in Uvalde, Texas, found a woman in the backyard suffering extensive burns after setting herself on fire. Regina Santos Aviles, a staff member to Congressman Tony Gonzalez, died the next day. She had previously told a co-worker that she and Gonzalez had been having an affair. 6 months later, under pressure from House GOP leadership, Gonzalez has dropped out of the race for a 4th term in office.
The Justice Department released new documents about the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. They include a complaint about President Trump, says ABC's Jay O'Brien.
According to these newly released reports, the FBI interviewed a woman about Jeffrey Epstein 4 times back in 2019. And in her second interview with investigators, she claims Epstein introduced her to Trump, who she alleges abused her when she was between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. Trump has denied any wrongdoing related to his relationship with Epstein or any knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
The U.S. military later this year plans to exhume the remains of 88 sailors and Marines killed on the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor and use modern DNA technology to see if they can be identified. I'm Brian Clark, ABC News.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want, like all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
From AP Radio News Updates at 6:57 a.m. today.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. President Trump fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem after mounting criticism over her leadership. Trump said he would nominate Oklahoma Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen to replace her. Speaking at U.S. Central Command yesterday in Florida, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Kristi Noem did a, quote, excellent job over there securing our border and keeping us focused on threats.
President making a change. We all serve at the pleasure of the president. I'm sure Mark Wayne Mullen will do a fantastic job. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. But Kristi did a great job setting us up for success. So I don't have any concerns about whether or not the homeland will be covered down on.
Trump said he was making Noem a special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a new security initiative that he said would focus on the Western Hemisphere. In Iran, witnesses say intense airstrikes hit the capital, Tehran, this afternoon. Meanwhile, Israel's military has issued a warning that people should flee an industrial area of Qom, the Shiite seminary city south of Iran's capital. The International Energy Agency director says the conflict in Iran has halted exports of Iranian gas to largely Asian markets. Speaking during a news conference in Brussels, Faith Barol warned this could lead Asian and European buyers to compete for liquefied natural gas if the crisis continues. Azerbaijan yesterday accused Iran of a drone attack on its territory that injured 4 civilians. It vowed to retaliate as the war in the Middle East reached into another country. At a briefing, Volker Turk, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, is calling for all parties in the war to de-escalate.
To give peace a chance, and on other states to call clearly on those involved to pull back. Cool heads must prevail if we are to prevent further terror and devastation for civilians.
More information at apnews.com. This is AP News. World shares were mixed today following a retreat on Wall Street, while the price of oil continued to climb. U.S. futures fell as the war with Iran entered its 7th day. Several states are taking legal action over President Trump's recent tariffs.
24 states are suing over new global tariffs President Trump imposed following his Supreme Court loss. Democratic attorneys general from Oregon, Arizona, California, and New York are leading the lawsuit. They argue the president has overstepped his power with planned 15% tariffs on much of the world. Trump has said the tariffs are essential to address trade deficits. He imposed duties under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 after the Supreme Court struck down tariffs he imposed last year. The lawsuit argues the 1974 law was intended to be used only in specific situations. Mike Hempen, Washington.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
From Reuters TV, U.S. at 5:47 a.m. today.
Hi, I'm Carmel Crimmins in Dublin. It's Friday, March 6th. Today, President Donald Trump fires Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. He tells Reuters the U.S. will have a role in choosing Iran's next leader, calling for the Kurds in Iraq to hit Iran. China rolls out its new 5-year plan at the National People's Congress. And Britney Spears is arrested. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. President Trump says the U.S. must be involved in choosing Iran's next leader. In an exclusive interview with Reuters, he gave his views on the future of the Iranian regime, a mere hours before Israel launched a new wave of strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, after ordering its residents to leave. Missiles pounded Lebanon's capital, which is quickly becoming a new front in the war, as Israel, backed by the US, focuses its military might on Hezbollah. There was no let-up in Tehran's night skies either, the Israeli military saying it had started a broad-scale wave of strikes against the Iranian regime's infrastructure in the early hours of this morning. Meanwhile, Iran launched an overnight drone attack on the Al Udeid airbase in Qatar, the biggest US base in the Middle East. Missiles continued to rain down on Tel Aviv, and Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it had targeted air bases in Israel, Kuwait, and Erbil, Iraq. In that exclusive interview, Trump said he doesn't think Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son will succeed him as the Islamic Republic's new supreme leader, and he refused to rule out the son of the former Shah taking over. White House reporter Steve Holland spoke to Trump over the phone on Thursday.
The president has said he wants to have a role in selecting the next leader of Iran, and this is very similar to what happened in Venezuela. Trump picked or was involved in the selection of Delcy Rodriguez as the acting leader of Venezuela now. He's been able to get along well with her, so I think he'd like to see that replicated in Iran, which is a much more complicated situation. We don't yet know who's going to rise up and become the next leader of Iran, whether it might be someone from Khamenei's inner circle, some other like consensus candidate. It's just we're just nowhere near that at the moment. But he did rule out supporting the son of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei as the leader. He didn't rule out the opposition figure Reza Pahlavi, who's related to the old Shah of Iran.
In that same interview, Trump brushed off concerns about spiking gas prices. If they rise, he said, and they're certainly doing that, heading for their largest weekly gain since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Elena Casas-Montanez from our sister podcast Morning Bid is here with the latest.
Well, oil markets are on track for their biggest rise in any week since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022, and that is translating into a jump at the pump for Americans. Now, President Trump sounded pretty relaxed about that when he spoke to Reuters, as you said, but the administration has said it's mulling intervening in financial markets to try and bring down the price of oil. Now, we don't know if that would necessarily work, given that the jump has been caused by a physical blockade. That oil is stuck in the Gulf and can't get out.
Thanks, Elena. You can listen to Morning Bid wherever you get your podcasts. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has been fired. Effective March 31st, President Trump says she'll be replaced by Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin. It's the biggest staffing shakeup of Trump's second term, and it raises questions about the direction of his immigration crackdown. Noem became one of Trump's most controversial cabinet members after 2 U.S. citizens were fatally shot by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis. She quickly labeled them domestic terrorists before videos undercut that claim. But it was a pricey ad campaign that apparently pushed Trump over the edge. Here's Steve Holland again, who spoke to the president about Noem shortly before the announcement.
One of the things that seems to have gotten the president's attention in a negative way is that Kristi Noem testified on Capitol Hill about a $200 million ad campaign that she's featured in. And she faced questions from lawmakers about this ad. She was asked, did President Trump sign off on this ad and this expenditure? And she said, yes, he did. And so when I got the president on the phone, I said, did you sign off on this ad? And he said, no, I did not. I never knew anything about it. So that would seem to be a one indicator of why he decided to move on. And the other is this expensive plane that was being set up for her to fly around in kind of a VIP type plane situation. You know, he gets tired of those kind of headlines. So, and then plus, remember, she was immersed in the ICE crackdown in Minneapolis and the resulting deaths of those 2 demonstrators, and that turned the public against her strongly, and he had to replace her with Tom Homan, the border czar. So that was a factor in his decision making.
The role of the Kurds is increasingly coming into focus in this new Middle East war. Trump has urged Kurdish forces in Iraq to cross over into Iran and start launching attacks. He told Reuters he thought it would be wonderful if they would go on the offensive. But the plan is raising serious concerns about regional spillover. Our Iraq correspondent John Davison is in Erbil.
I think for this fight, there's particular Kurdish groups, including armed groups, that see an opportunity to carve out maybe their own sort of enclave in Iran, which they could run. And so this is possibly the best chance that they get to do that as far as they see it. The fact that Trump is willing to apparently support them militarily, perhaps by providing weapons or perhaps by providing air cover, seems to have got a few of the groups excited about that possibility.
If the Kurds do make a move, it would signal a new expanded phase in the war.
There are Shiites, armed factions in Iraq who are sort of allied with the Islamic Republic in Iran, who have said that they will likely join in and try and fight the Kurds if they start to invade parts of Iran. And then there are Kurds in Iraq, including members of the regional government here, who are very nervous at the prospect of this happening, partly because they know that it could bring Iranian retaliation on their cities. And so they've been a little bit cautious in getting dragged into something which they basically, for them, would upset the apple cart and could destabilize their region once again.
China has a new 5-year plan. Turbocharge its tech and settle for a slightly lower growth target of 4.5 to 5%. Beijing is trading its record-breaking GDP to focus on AI, robotics, and high-tech self-reliance. Kevin Krolicki in Beijing has more.
The really interesting thing about the government work report and the 5-year plan is the laser focus on achieving self-sufficiency and high technology. That's the aspiration, and really driving AI into every sector of the economy. So the government called out a number of sectors for government support. Some of these are sectors that China already dominates or has a lead in, like humanoid robotics. Some of them are very cutting edge, still, almost science fiction, like machine-brain interfaces. But one thing throughout this planning process that China is clear on is it wants to get AI and embedded AI into 90% of the industrial sectors by 2030. It's both creating demand for local champions like DeepSeek, and it's potentially creating a risk for employment that the government will have to manage down the road.
U.S. military investigators say that America was likely responsible for the strike on the Iranian girls' school last weekend. 2 U.S. officials told Reuters it isn't a final determination and the investigation is still underway. Britney Spears has been arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. California Highway Patrol says they received a report of a black BMW traveling erratically at high speed. She was the only person in the car and showed signs of impairment due to both alcohol and drugs, according to the police. She was booked into the Ventura County main jail late Wednesday. A representative for Spears did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Ukraine and Russia exchanged 200 prisoners of war each on Thursday, even as US-backed peace talks remain stalled. Video from the Ukrainian Presidential Press Service shows a bus arriving at an undisclosed location in Ukraine. As the doors open, tearful relatives push forward, greeting freed soldiers, many of them draped in Ukrainian flags. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
From ABC News Nightline at 4 a.m. today.
That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom?